Okay, pre-algebra lesson 3.3, we are rounding decimals. Rounding a decimal is very much like rounding any other number. Okay, the difference with a decimal, and you do the same thing with a whole number, is what place you're rounding to. So I could round to the nearest whole number. I could round to the nearest tenth. I could round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, but the steps are still the same. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is you identify which place value you are rounding to. Okay, then just like whole numbers, you look at the first digit to the right. Of the place you're rounding. If it is 5 or greater, increase the digit you're rounding by 1. And make everything to the right 0. If the digit to the right of the digit you are rounding is less than 5, leave the digit you are rounding unchanged and make everything to the right 0. Okay? So, same steps. We have 9.7524. We want to round that to the nearest tenth. Okay? Well, the 7 is in the tenths place. So we have 9 point, we don't know it yet. We look to the right, it's a 5. Okay? So it's greater. So it's in the first one here. So we're going to take the 7 and make it an 8, and then everything to the right becomes a 0. If we want to round to the nearest hundredth, okay, the 5 is in the hundredths place. So we get 9.7. Then we have to decide if it's 0.75 or 76. So we look to the right and it's a 2. Okay, which means that 5 remains unchanged and everything else to the right becomes a 0. Okay? So it just depends on the place that you are rounding to. 28.2519. We're going to round to the nearest whole number, the nearest tenth, the nearest hundredth, and the nearest thousandth. All right, nearest whole number. So 8, it would be the whole number part. To the right is a 2, so the 8 remains unchanged, and we get 28. The nearest tenth, the 2 is in the tenths place. So look to the right of the 2 is a 5, so that means we make the 2 greater. So we go up to 3, everything to the right becomes a 0. Okay, nearest hundredth, we're looking at the 1, or not the 1, sorry, the 5. The 5 is in the hundredths place. So you look to the right, we have to decide if the 5 stays 5 or it goes up to 6. So look to the right, we have 1, okay? So that means the 5 remains unchanged and everything becomes 0 to the right. And then the nearest thousandth, that's where the 1 is. So we have to decide if the 1 is going to stay 1 or become a 9, or become a 2. So we look to the right and it's 9, so that means we're going up. So the 1 goes up to a 2, and then everything to the right becomes a 0. Okay? We can use rounding to estimate a sum or a difference. And again, those steps are also the same, right? First, you need to round your numbers. And you round to the place it specifies. All digits that you're adding or subtracting. Then you use the rounded decimals to add or subtract. Or to find the sum or difference. Okay, you round first, then add or subtract. So we want to estimate by rounding to the nearest whole number. We have n equals 785 and 24 100ths minus 67 and 52 100ths. So to the nearest whole number, we're going to use the squiggly lines to say n is approximately, okay, it's not exact. So the nearest whole number, 785. We look to the 2, so it's going to stay 785. Minus 67, we're going to look to the 5. We have to go up, so it's minus 68. Okay? So we're going to do 785 minus 68 to get 717 by rounding. Your notes are wrong. I think I added in my notes. And I did the nearest 10th. All right, so when we look here, I rounded this to 790 and I added. So that's where the 860 came from. It's not correct. Okay, you want it to be 785 minus 68, which is about 717. Okay, so that is 3.3.